Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this announcement today about a new election-related lawsuit. We appreciate everybody's attention and interest in what's happening here with this new filing in Washington County. My name is Andy Hoover. I am the Director of Communications for the ACLU of Pennsylvania. And we have a wonderful panel of lawyers and an impacted voter and organizational leaders in Washington County who you're going to hear from over the next 15 to 20 minutes. I will note we're joined by Vic Walczek, who is the legal director for the ACLU of Pennsylvania, Mimi McKenzie, who is the legal director for Public Interest Law Center, ACLU of PA and Public Interest Law Center are representing voters and organizations that are bringing this action today against Washington County, along with the law firm Deckert LLP. We're also joined by Bruce Jacobs, who is a voter who was impacted by a policy decision by the Washington County Board of Elections, along with Sarah Martik, who is the executive director for the Center for Coalfield Justice, and David Gatling Sr. David is president of the Washington branch of the NAACP. So thank you all to our participants and our team that's here today. And having said that, Vic, why don't you get us started and talk about what happened and what this filing is all about?
Thank you, Andy. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. So folks may have noticed that since 2020, when the General Assembly expanded mail voting to anybody, not just those who had certain excuses, there's been a significant increase in how many people rely on that way of voting. And we've also seen that there are a significant number of people who are having difficulties completing the process by making technical errors like forgetting the signature or date or putting the wrong date or forgetting the secrecy envelope. And one of the things we've seen with data collection since then is mostly and disproportionately affects our senior citizens. It's now running at about 1% of mail ballots. And that may not sound like a lot, but for instance, in the 2022 general election, that was about 22,000 ballots. And if you think about it, a 0.5% difference in vote is enough to trigger a mandatory recount. So even though the percentage may be small, you're talking about pretty large numbers. Now, since the advent of sort of no excuse absentee voting, different counties provide help in different ways. Some do it better, some do it worse. But in April of this year, we at the ACLU and the Public Interest Law Center were alarmed to see that Washington County commissioners, by a vote of 2-1, changed their practice. And not only would they not tell voters who sent in their ballots with one of these disqualifying mistakes, but they actively concealed the information so that voters wouldn't and couldn't find out that their ballot would not count, and they had no way of fixing it. And in other counties, what we've seen, more than half of voters in this situation are able to sort of fix their ballot, preserve their vote. So that means that out of the 259 voters in this last low turnout election in Washington County whose ballots were not counted, more than half of those likely would have been able to fix the ballots, but for this change by the Washington County commissioners. When we started calling voters on that list, weeks after Election Day, most of the voters, even at that point, did not realize that their votes had not counted, that their ballots had been canceled, and it was long past time for them to do anything. So today, working with Public Interest Law Center, the law firm of Deckert, the ACLU filed a lawsuit against the Washington County Board of Commissioners on behalf of 7 of the 259 voters who were disenfranchised in the last election, and on behalf of the Center for Coalfield Justice and the NAACP Washington County. Let me stop there and turn it over to my colleague, Mimi McKenzie, to talk about a little bit about the lawsuit and what to expect in the coming days.
Well, just trying to get my video on. I apologize for the delay. Good afternoon, everyone. So in this lawsuit, we're at a high level asking the Washington County Board of Elections to support voting, not to obstruct voting. But specifically what that means is we're asking the court to find that this policy and practice that Vic described violates the due process guarantees in the Pennsylvania Constitution. We're asking the court to enjoin the board from concealing information and misleading voters about their mail-in ballot status. We're asking the court to order the board to accurately and promptly enter information about the voter's ballot status into the state SURE system, which is the system that they need and must use to run elections. And this would actually allow voters going forward to be able to look up the status of their ballot. It would allow parties and other get out the vote groups to alert voters that there was a problem with their ballot. And at a minimum, then, this would allow a voter who made one of these minor technical mistakes on their ballot to exercise their vote, their right to cast a provisional ballot at the polling place on election day. So in short, it would greatly reduce the number of voters who are disenfranchised every election because of paperwork errors. I will say that the board could even do more to support voting. Nothing is stopping the board from also putting in place robust procedures like they had before this spring and like their neighboring counties have. Namely giving voters information that there's a problem with their ballot and providing multiple ways to fix that paperwork. Voting is the cornerstone of our democracy, and this issue really needs to be resolved quickly before the November election. So in the next few days, we'll be filing paperwork with the court, asking them to expedite this case. I think now you'd probably like to hear from the impacted organizations and voters, so I'll let Andy take over with facilitating, and thank you.
Thanks, Mimi. Thanks, Vic. Yes, we're going to hear first from an impacted voter, Bruce Jacobs. Bruce, feel free to join in. Bruce had the experience of having his ballot disqualified in the spring primary. So, Bruce, tell us what happened to you.
Good afternoon. My name is Bruce Jacobs. I'm a retired occupational therapist. I dedicated my career to helping others manage injuries, cognitive and physical limiting challenges. Currently, I am spending my time in artistic, avocational activities, and volunteering at the Carnegie Museum of Pittsburgh. I was contacted by a nonprofit organization learning my vote and the votes of others were not counted. This nonprofit and others were looking into reasons why this occurred when it could have been easily corrected. Voting is important to me and my family. If we have 3 daughters, and I've always encouraged them to be politically active and to vote. I make it a primary goal to, vote in both the primary and general elections. Since 2021, I cast my vote by mail, and I did this because of health concerns. That was COVID time. I thought I had done everything correctly, but I made a mistake apparently. I'd forgotten to sign and date the envelope. The Washington County election officials knew I made a mistake when they received my ballot. They knew they would reject that ballot because of this mistake, but they never notified me. And my vote was not counted. I only found out months later when I received a call from the Public Interest Law Center. Had officials contacted me as an American with a fundamental right to vote, I would have done everything I could have done to rectify that error. I joined this case because county officials have eroded people's rights and the dignity of our elections. And I believe that this must change. In my profession, we follow codes of ethics and the law in regard to our responsibilities. We expect that our elected officials would do everything possible to protect the rights of their constituents and the people they serve in preserving voting rights and the rights of all Americans. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. We are now going to hear from our organizational plaintiffs in this case. First, we're going to hear from Sarah Martic, Executive Director of the Center for Coalfield Justice.
Thank you so much, Andy, and thank you all for being here today. My name is Sarah Martic. I am the Executive Director of the Center for Coalfield Justice. CCJ is a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving Washington and Greene counties. We advocate and organize with coalfield residents toward a world that lives up to the ideals of environmental and economic justice. To do that, we recognize the importance of defending our democracy because our democratic systems are the reason why our voices matter, why we're able to rely on our lived experiences and have our perspectives mean something to those who are making decisions at all levels of government. I'm very grateful to be here today with partners from the ACLU and Public Interest Law Center because of their support in defending people's rights to vote in Washington County. I'm also grateful for the Washington branch of the NAACP and individuals like Bruce who joined this case. Simply put, we believe that the decision made by the Washington County Board of Elections to not allow ballot curing violated people's rights to vote. Our vote is our way of expressing ourselves in our democratic systems. CCJ believes in advocating and organizing to participate in decision-making throughout the year, not just during elections. However, when elections do happen, people should have access to the ballot box and trust that their vote will be counted. I also want to be very clear about what ballot curing is and what it is not. Ballot curing is not changing your vote. It is not voting at a time when you should not be voting. It is not a way to allow ineligible people to cast a ballot. That is not what ballot curing is. Ballot curing allows individuals to correct simple administrative errors that could prevent their vote from being counted. When you vote in person, as I usually do, poll workers are there to assist with the voting process. They provide you with your ballot or your card and can help address any concerns or errors on the spot to ensure that your vote is properly counted. You can have faith in what just happened. Ballot curing serves the same purpose for those who prefer to vote by mail. It's a way that the system is designed to protect people's right to vote rather than deny it. CCJ has been working with our members and supporters and residents of Washington and Greene counties more broadly on protecting their right to vote since at least 2020. For almost 4 years, we've been dedicated to promoting the ideal that our democratic system works only when people engage with it, and that includes casting their ballots. This is work we will continue to carry out for the foreseeable future. Now, how much time, resources, and elbow grease we have to put into it will depend on how our elected representatives make decisions about our voting rights. In an ideal world, we would not have to be part of this lawsuit at all because the Washington County Board of Elections would have made a choice to protect people's votes. But the reality is that our democratic systems are being undermined and require us to get involved to defend them. And if that means we call eligible voters across the county, we'll do that. If that means we put out educational materials informing people of deadlines, protocols, we'll do that. And very clearly, if that means we engage through our legal system, we'll do that too. When people's right to vote is on the line, it is too important not to get involved. I look forward to continuing this work to defend and promote our democracy. And I thank you for being here and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. And as mentioned, along with CCJ, the additional organizational plaintiff in this case is the Washington branch of the NAACP. We are joined by David Gatling Sr., who is the president of the branch. And David, I can...
Good afternoon. It won't let my video come up. Okay, here we go.
There you go.
There we go. Good afternoon. My name is David Gatling, president of the Washington County NAACP. Our voting rights are under attack here in Washington County. The Washington County Commissioners and the Board of Elections chose to conceal from voters that there were mistakes on their mail-in ballots, return envelopes. This is a form of voter suppression. Our elected officials are not carrying out their responsibilities to the registered voters of our county in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Their actions undermine the integrity of the election system. Public officials who run elections should be doing everything in their power to encourage voting and count ballots, not finding sneaky ways to keep voters from having their ballots counted. My hope is that this lawsuit will bring the corrective action we need so that voters who want to participate get their chance without trivial errors on the return envelope, leading to them being disenfranchised. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, David. So if all of the participants could now turn on your video, we have an opportunity for questions and answers from reporters. I do want to note, along with the lawyers and plaintiffs you've already heard from, we're also joined today by Claudia DePalma, Senior Attorney for Public Interest Law Center, and Marion Schneider, Senior Policy Counsel for Voting Rights for the ACLU of Pennsylvania. Claudia and Marion are also co-counsel on this case, so you may hear from the two of them throughout the Q&A portion. Reporters, you can just hit the raise hand function, and I will call on you based on using that function. If you could say we can see your names, but if you could also say your outlet, we'd appreciate that as well. So the first person I see with their hand raised is Chris Potter. Go ahead, Chris.
Hi, can everybody hear me okay?
Sure can.
Great. A couple questions. First of all, I know you folks sent a letter to Washington County officials in April as a sort of shot across the bow. I'm wondering if there had been any discussion with those officials since the letter. Obviously, you didn't get the result you wanted, but whether there'd been any discussion at all. And the other question was, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the basis for the assertion that the elections board actually directed election staff not to provide information to voters, as opposed to county staff just kind of acting like county workers sometimes do. What's the basis for claiming that that was a specific affirmative direction by Board of Elections folks?
I mean, I can take the first part of that. I could take both, but I may suggest somebody else take the second. So Chris, the answer to your first question about whether or not the Washington County commissioners ever engaged, the answer is no. Tried to talk to the solicitor, but essentially got no response. I don't know. Claudia, do you want to talk about the ins and outs of what Washington County did, which actually has led not only to concealing information from the voters, but actually resulting in them being misled?
Sure. There were a couple things that happened. So we do know that voters who called the elections office were told that no information would be given, and there was news coverage we can share with you that outlined, I think, the election director herself saying, when people call, we're not going to be giving them any information, and voters who did call were just referred to the commissioners instead of being given information. So that's the background behind that assertion. And then in addition, the county was entering ballots in a way that not only sort of displayed as just received instead of canceled for an error, but that system, the SURE system, which the counties work through in order to run elections, generates an email to voters who have an email registered with the system. And that email also had many indications that if you don't hear from us again, and the county does not contact you about an issue that would prevent your ballot from being counted, you cannot vote in person on election day, and period. So that's another aspect to the ways in which many voters, including some of our plaintiffs, were led to believe up until months after election day that their vote had been counted.
Just one other thing, and by entering the misleading code or not entering the correct code, not only do voters get an email if they have email sign up saying that their vote is, there's no problem with their vote, leading them to believe that, but also there's a tracker. So you can go online at the Department of State and check to see the status of your ballot. And if you don't enter the right code, you're going to get that same message that, hey, I'm probably good to go. When in fact, the county knew full well that these ballots were not going to be counted. And that is a change in how Washington County practices, and it's not the way most counties in Pennsylvania practice.
All right. Katie Bernard.
Can you all hear me?
Sure can.
Awesome. Katie Bernard with Philadelphia Inquirer. A couple quick questions. Mainly, are there any concerns that there are similar situations to this happening in other counties outside Washington County? And do you all expect this case and the ultimate ruling to have a broader statewide impact?
Katie, thanks for your question. As Vic mentioned, many counties actually do try to support voters in remedying mistakes that they make. But there are counties like Washington who continue to hide that information, which in effect means that the voter then can't go to their polling place on election day and vote a provisional ballot, which they're entitled to do under the law. And we very much hope that this case will have statewide implications. Obviously, we are in the Washington County Court of Common Pleas at the moment, but experience tells us one way or another, this case will go up on appeal.
All right, thanks, Mimi. Mark Scalfaro.
Hi, yeah, thanks for holding this. I kind of wanted to drill down a little more on that exact same topic, which is, Vic, I think you said most counties don't do it that way, and Mimi, you said some other counties do. Just to put a finer point on it, are there other counties that code their ballots that they have rejected under SURE that just say received, right? That's the heart of this issue, correct? And do you know if there are other counties that do it that way? You'll never know that yours been rejected based on the SURE system coding.
Marion, do you want to take that one?
Well, I think that in our experience, the majority of counties follow the Department of State's guidance on how they should code envelopes when they come in. And if you, just as a practical or logistical matter, on the envelope itself, the barcode that is scanned appears directly below the declaration envelope. So counties are going to see that when they come in. And that's why counties do enter a code that indicates correct, in our experience, most counties are entering the code that if it's canceled, if it's missing, if it has a disqualifying defect. And again, just like Vic had mentioned, there's a tracker. The public-facing tracker is populated from those codes. And so that is the source of assertion that most counties don't do this, but I just want to make sure people understand that generally, when voters call their county election office and ask about their ballots, they give out information. And in other, so that's what makes this case a little bit different than other counties, where there was a definite process that they were not going to divulge any information about the status of a mail ballot when a voter called in. And so I think that's really a distinctive characteristic of this particular case.
Can you name any other counties that do this, that have got this sugarcoating that misleads significant numbers of voters into thinking that it's just received, not that it's being received?
No.
Mark,
we can look into it, and we can we'll look into it and get you a further answer if that'll be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems we have is that how counties operate is not perfectly transparent. So we've been sending lots of right to know requests to try to get that information, but I don't think we have a comprehensive assessment of what's going on. Just one of the things that's important is that this is not something that's difficult to do, and if you look. Fayette, Greene, Allegheny, Beaver, they all take steps to help the voters in the exact same position, right? And these are all eligible, qualified voters who've submitted timely ballots. And it's like a game of gotcha. You missed one little thing and we're not going to count your ballot. That's not how voting's supposed to work. This is a fundamental right. The government should not only not be standing in the way of people exercising that right, they should be helping. And as Sarah mentioned, if you went to a polling place and you walk out of the booth and forgot to push that, vote button in the past, or you did something wrong, they're going to help you. This is absolutely no different.
All right, thank you, Vic and Marion. We are going to move now to Mike Jones.
Hi, this is Mike Jones with the Washington Observer Reporter and Uniontown Herald Standard. Reading the lawsuit and the declarations from the 7 voters, the word that kept coming up was anger. This message is for Bruce, or question is for Bruce. Do you feel like you were deceived by the Washington County Elections Office or the board? And do you have a message specifically for Commissioners Nick Sherman and Electra Janis who voted on this policy?
Yes, yeah, I do feel like I was deceived. In my statement earlier, I think defines that this is my right. I'm an American, and their job as commissioners are to support the people that they represent. And I live in Washington County. I vote all the time. I've, engaged in volunteering. These are my rights. And it's just flat out wrong. Did that address all your questions?
Do you have a message specifically for Commissioner Sherman and Janis?
That they denied me my rights. And they're not holding their responsibility as their position to allow me to cure my vote.
Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce. Thanks, Mike. We're going to move on now to Jordan Wilkie. Oh, Jordan, if you're speaking, we cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Marion, forgive me if I misunderstood you, but did you say that other counties were inputting this data in line with DOS guidance? And if so, where is that guidance coming from? Because I'm looking at their 2023-0403 civilian absentee mail-in ballot procedures guidance. And I don't see the specific detail about correct way to input data once ballots with apparently missing data were segregated.
So the majority of counties are doing this. We are if you look at Exhibit 8 of the complaint, it talks about what counties are doing. And the guidance that we are referring to is the Department of State guidance about examining and processing mail ballot envelopes. And that's where the department has said that the county should scan them when they get them. And, as soon as they get them, they should scan them so that the received code is in there. And then if there's a disqualifying defect, they should choose from the drop-down menu, cancel for whatever reason, the cancellation. Because as you know, as everyone on this call knows, that the ballots who are missing a date, missing a signature, or a secrecy envelope must be set aside and not counted. And so the department has advised counties to do that as quickly as, in fact, their words are, as promptly and as accurately as possible. So that's where that's from. So it's the guidance that's entitled Examination of Mail-in Ballots.
And I believe that's Exhibit 9 in the complaint, if you're looking at those documents.
All right. And then just a quick follow-up. I see that here. Thank you. Quick follow-up. If the state issued this guidance but isn't enforcing it, I mean, what is there some responsibility for the state to also take action? Is there potential litigation against the state? Like, what if this is their guidance but not doing anything?
So I'll take this if you guys, that's okay. I think that you can look at guidance as the Department of State's interpretation of the election code as the state agency with special expertise in elections and who has and who tries to provide its interpretation of what the law requires. So I don't think that what we're talking about is enforcement per se. So there's really two aspects. The department is interpreting the statute and saying, counties, this is what we interpret the statute to mean, and this is what you should be doing. But another part of that is that the department has an obligation under both federal and state law to administer a statewide uniform system of voter registration that includes voter history, including the method of voting. And pursuant to that authority has promulgated regulations in which the county shall use the SURE system to accurately record information. So what our case is saying is that procedural due process requires pre-deprivation notice. In other words, before you're going to deny someone the right to vote, you have to tell them that you're going to do that so that they may take advantage of a process. We already have a process that's been on the books for more than 20 years, and that's the provisional ballot process. And it exists because sometimes there's an issue or a question around a voter's ability to cast a vote, and it allows them to cast their ballot provisionally so that its determination can be made after the fact. By not allowing voters that process, you've denied them completely the right to vote. And so that's what this lawsuit is talking about at a minimum, that the Constitution requires some kind of process. And here's an existing one, that these voters were denied.
Thank you.
Okay, at the moment, I think we have no more hands raised, although Chris, your hand is still up. I didn't know if that was from before. But I'll just give it a moment here. If any reporters have additional questions, hit that raise hand button. And oh, we do have another one. All right. And in the meantime, I will mention that, as you can tell, we are recording this webinar. So reporters, if you need access to it later, just contact me or Jonathan McJunkin. I put Jonathan's email in the chat. We have a question here from Robert Ornstein.
Yes, Robert Ornstein with Armchair Lehigh Valley. It's a small nonprofit political newsletter based in the Lehigh Valley. This lawsuit and others that you folks have been involved with, particularly signature undated ballots just shows the problems with the whole system, the fact that the legislature has not tried to correct any of these problems. Where can this all lead? You have multiple lawsuits going on, and do you think there's going to be some resolution to this at some point to clarify the guidelines and remove these minor errors as disqualifications for the ballots?
I'm happy to take that. Robert, so yeah, as you noted, this isn't the first lawsuit we filed related to voting rights, and I mean I think we actually have 5 or 6 now. And the idea is that we want to try to eliminate barriers to people being able to vote and to have their votes counted. This isn't about gaming the system. This is just about ensuring that every eligible qualified voter who submits a timely ballot is able to vote and have that vote counted. Our goal, and not just in this lawsuit, but in all of the lawsuits, and there's another big one now involving whether or not people who forget the date or put the wrong date, whether those ballots are automatically counted. That's pending in Commonwealth Court. Our goal is to get a decision on all of these issues before voting starts in mid-September, right? This is about clearing away barriers to voting. This is not designed to help any particular party or candidate. Our plaintiffs in this case are a bipartisan group. This impacts every voter in the Commonwealth, and we're hoping to be able to help them before voting. And the goal is to get an appellate decision before voting starts in mid-September.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Vic. Thanks, Robert. So I see no more raised hands, so we will wrap up. Again, reporters, you're welcome to contact myself or Jonathan if you have follow-up. If you have follow-up questions, our emails both in the chat and also on the advisory and the press release that went out, as well as our phone numbers. Thank you to our entire panel. Really appreciate everybody's energy and time. And reporters, we will keep you all updated as this case moves along. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.